Hey, deserving listeners, it's time to continue our journey watching Married at First Sight. Let's get to the show. My name is Dr. Kirk Honda. I'm a therapist and a professor who specializes in couples therapy. And let's see if anything of interest comes out of my face.
Hey, honey.
Hey.
How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good.
Today I am meeting Michael's sister.
This is great. So I was like, oh, she's meeting up with one of her friends. No, she's meeting up with Michael's sister. This is fantastic. This is going to potentially give more background for Michael and his issues that will help Meka to not personalize his behavior and help contextualize it. So this is great. And I'm personally curious as to what Michael's sister is going to tell us.
Well, the one thing that I can say about my brother is that he always was just a different character. He was not like everyone else.
The most challenging.
Okay, so that's a little insight into at least the sister's observation of Michael, which is that he was always different. Now, some of you out there might think, oh, maybe on the autism spectrum. And certainly that's possible. But there are a lot of different explanations as to why someone would be different, why they would seem different. A lot of different explanations, aside from being on the autism spectrum. So I'll say that. And if you are mildly autistic or mildly on the autism spectrum, it can be hard to detect. And so I'm not going to speculate about that. It's possible, but I'll tell you that he doesn't have any of the classic signs. But if we actually talked to him and did a full assessment, we might find that it is a viable conceptualization of his personality that he is on the spectrum slightly. Maybe we'll get some more data on that.
Maybe what's maybe showing up is a level of rejection of when he was younger, growing up, in the different schools, and maybe people not accepting him for who he was. I have to make sure that I am being the best husband. I have the best job. I can articulate myself well. When at the end of the day, he just wants to have someone who accepts him.
Right.
Okay, very interesting. So this is actually an hypothesis, a factor that I don't usually bring up. If you watch my 90 Day Fiancé videos, I did bring it up with Stephanie, in that she, I believe, moved from the Czech Republic when she was 8 or 9 or 10 years old, came to the United States, didn't speak English, and was just thrown into school. And for 1 or 2 years, she was completely alone and scared and made to feel like she was different and weird. And that affected her personality. So this is a factor that I often don't bring up, which is the factor of personality development when you're in school. I usually almost always talk about the relationship between children and their parents. But I have worked with many clients on the traumas that are involved in being bullied at school or abandoned at school or rejected at school. And she put in a little word there of different schools. So maybe he was moved around to different schools. And that created for him this sense of constantly losing the few friends he developed at school, which is terrible for kids. And then the terror of being the new kid in school, and then being a little different, and then being ostracized, and then needing to brag to just get a little bit of attention and acceptance from other people. So you rinse and repeat that enough, and it gets habitual. Now, I wonder if he was adopted even later, because to hear about him moving from school to school to school, it wouldn't be inconsistent from someone who had a difficult childhood and then was adopted into a more stable family at the age of, age of 8 or 9 years old. Who knows? But at the very least, being moved around can be very traumatic. I've had clients who were raised well by good parents, were well off, went to good schools, had enough food, had all the good things in life, but they were bullied at school or abandoned at school or rejected at school systematically, chronically for a year or longer, or their parents moved a lot and they were extracted from schools and had to start all over again at another school. And I have seen that have profound effects on someone's personality. And it's not something that a lot of parents think about. They're like, well, I got another job across town or across the country. You know, they're in the third grade. They'll adjust. You know, they'll meet new kids at the next school. Everything will be fine. And for some kids, it can be, but for a lot of kids, it is awful. And it's one of those things that you just don't think about with, or I don't find people think about with kids when they should be.
I think what you're saying makes a lot of sense. I mean, he's told me that he doesn't like rejection, but it was never a story of why. And like you saying that now makes all the sense in the world. Michael has told me a lot of times before that he does not like rejection. When I ask him, like, why does he feel like he has to like lie about who he is? It's always like, well, I was adopted. And I'm like, well, that doesn't really give me any insight. But her saying he literally was teased and like rejected for being who he truly was like an explanation that was logical. So it makes sense that now he's like, well, when I was myself, nobody liked it. So let me create this person that I want to be so that people like me.
Yay. So I think I'm realizing that I'm pulling for this couple. I really am. This really makes me feel good that one, Michael is able to be vulnerable and really inspire some empathy from Meka, give her a chance to have empathy for him. And then the sister is now providing more context, which even helps Meka understand Michael even more. And I wonder if Meka, from now on, will be able to say the next time that he lies, because he's going to lie. He's not going to be successful white-knuckling it, in all likelihood. And the next time he lies, she's gonna react and be hurt and be like, wait, I'm not going to personalize this. This has to do with being adopted. This has to do with him being rejected in school when he was young. This is his issue. It's not personal to me. And okay, what do I need to do here? Michael, I think you're exaggerating. What is it about the situation that is triggering that from you? Do you feel like I'm going to reject you? Because I'm not. We're married. This is solid. You can trust it. You can tell me the truth. I'm not going to reject you. And I would appreciate it if you didn't. But I understand that when you get scared, you start lying, which I also accept. I don't like it, but I accept it. So maybe Meka can do that. And that'd be great. So this is great. She's getting more depth on Michael's past, on his family of origin, on his history, on his traumas, which helps her to have more understanding, a better conceptualization of Michael's behavior, and thus more empathy. People often talk about, you got to have empathy for other people in my profession, and you can't strong arm empathy. You can't force empathy. You have to conceptualize accurately, and empathy follows. I'm a big proponent of this. When all my trainees hear me talk about this all the time. When you're trying to have empathy, or when you lose empathy, you don't want to just say, well, how do I get empathy back? How can I have compassion for this client? You can't just strong arm that. What you have to do is you have to, in my view, accurately conceptualize the client, and you'll just naturally care. So as someone's lying to you, it's hurtful, and you're angry, and you just say, that person's a gaslighter, and they're terrible. And because in between the behavior and the narrative about them, the reaction to them, is a conceptualization. You see the lying behavior, and then the conceptualization is, well, they're doing it on purpose. They're gaslighting me. I hate them. A different conceptualization, they're lying to me. They're lying to me because they're afraid, because when they were young, they were made to feel afraid a lot and rejected a lot. And this is a habitual thing for them to exaggerate as a way of trying to get acceptance from other people. Now I have compassion. Okay? Different conceptualization, different reaction. Different narrative, different reaction. So for all of us, a different conceptualization can go a long way.
I think the best thing that to just keep trying.
Yeah.
And I mean, after these weeks, maybe need to make a decision based on what he's shown you and the potential of what he will show you. I think both of them have some trust issues, trusting another person to have their best interest. They're so used to trusting themselves that they forget that I'm supposed to be able to trust someone else.
I just want to make a decision based on the authentic Michael.
Maybe help him along with that.
Great. That's a great message, because I want to get to know the real him. I want to make a decision based on the real him, not the defensive lying him, but the real him. That's another good conceptualization. There's a real him that I like, and then there's the defensive, defense mechanism lying aspect of him. That's not him. We're externalizing the behavior I don't like from the real him instead of integral to his personality, integral to his soul. And then the sister is saying, well, maybe you can help him with that. Instead of demanding it from him, maybe you can work together. You'll hear me say this all the time. When the couple is on the same team, working on the problem, then you're on the road to success. When you're fighting each other, you're not on the road to success. If you're on the same team and saying, okay, Michael and Meka are on the same team trying to work on the fact that Michael has traumas and that that results in him lying. Michael wants to work on that. Meka wants to work on that. They're working together on that instead of stop doing that behavior. So it's great that Meka is open to that and that the sister suggested that.
Because I think that you all could work.
Right.
Don't take it personally because he's not giving you all the information. Just like that's who he has been.
Right.
So in these 8 weeks, no one changes that fast.
Right.
So another great conceptualization of he has been this way his whole life and he's not going to change overnight. He can change, but it's not going to be overnight. That's another great message. And she's, really, really helping Meka to be inspired for the future. So this is really great. And maybe Meka and Michael are going to make it. They really did not see, there's been so many times this season where I thought, this is doomed. This is not going to work. But now it's starting to look like it will. This is great. Like I said, I'm pulling for this couple. Now you watch the end maybe and know where this goes. And so maybe you've always known, but I don't know where this is going.
He needs someone to help him change.
I'm willing to do what he needs from me as a wife, but he also has to be able to take accountability for his actions and know when he's wrong. If he can just be honest, we can try to repair our marriage.
You want to try some of these Brussels sprouts?
I'm picky.
No, let's talk about that. Let's talk about your picking. Because see, you talking about my brother, and we talk about you.
All right, well, that does it for that episode of Psychology in Seattle. Thanks for joining me out there. Please take care of yourself because you deserve it. You really, really do.